Benvenuti amici a mia cucina. Welcome friends to my kitchen. I am Chef Peter Gambacorta. I am from Tampa, Florida, and I'm a member of the American Culinary Federation there. I'm also a member of the Chaîne de Restaurateur Gourmet Society. I did my training at the Culinary Institute of America, New Hyde Park, New York, and I own and operate the Private Chef of Tampa Culinary Company. My background is Italian-American. My family came here in 1914. This family here. My mom's in the middle of this picture. Picture was taken in 1924. This family came from Italy. They're a bit more prosperous. They built a very prosperous food business in Buffalo, New York, and also in Glendale, California. Is my grandmother and grandfather on the other side. They also came from Sicily. They came in after World War II in 1947. This is my mentor. She taught me everything I knew before going to culinary school. I used to watch her on Saturday mornings, watching her intently, trying to figure out what she did, go out and buy the ingredients and try to make them on Saturday afternoon. Most of the time this stuff got tossed, but at least that's where I got my inspiration from her. So that's why she's here. I am here today to make you a meal from northern Italy, from Lombardy and the Po Valley. I hope you'll enjoy it. Good morning. This morning we are going to prepare Ossobuco alla Milanese, which is from northern Italy. It's actually from Lombardy area. And we're going to be using a technique called braising. Maybe you don't know what braising is, but if you've made Yankee pot roast at home, it's the same idea. You're taking a lesser cut of meat, putting it in liquid, and cooking it over a long period of time so it gets real soft. So this morning, as I mentioned, we're doing Ossobuco. It's a very traditional meal from northern Italy. Emilia-Romagna is the region. There are 20 regions in Italy, all of them different, and each one of the products in each one of the areas is different based upon the geography, based upon the water content. It goes from the Alps all the way down to the high desert in Sicily, where there is a volcano. So you get lots of very rich volcanic soil in Sicily, so you get lots of veggies and not so much beef. So anyway, Ossobuco. Ossobuco is made with veal. Today we're doing pork shank. I personally don't use a lot of veal, but we're going to use pork shank today. And we have them prepared and tied off to keep them together. I'm going to tie the last one off here. This holds it together, lets it cook more thoroughly and more completely. And now we're going to season with some salt and pepper. And we are going to season both sides. And don't be shy with the salt and pepper, because that's pretty thick pieces of meat. We're going to do the back side same way. And we're going to dredge it in some flour, the meat side. This is going to build up a little crust on it as we put it in the frying pan. And now we're going to go into the frying pan and brown these up, put a little crust on them, and we'll move back to the frying pan. Okay, we put a little butter in the large, heavy frying pan. We're going to add some extra virgin olive oil to that, and that lowers the burning temperature of the oil. Adding the butter. We're going to let that heat up a little bit until it gets bubbly. And we're going to put the Ossobuco shanks in there. Andiamo. That's in Italian, means let's get moving, let's get going. Shanks have cooked on one side. We're going to turn them over to do the other side. They have a nice brown on them right now, which is great. And I use the word andiamo quite frequently in my kitchen when people are going too slow. It means let's go, let's get moving, let's go, let's move, let's move. So andiamo. So this is gonna cook a little bit more, and now we gotta let this get brown on the other side. So we got some browning now going on the bottom side of the shanks. We're gonna pull these off the heat. We're gonna let them sit out here on the side. You can see the pan is getting very hot at the moment. I'm gonna turn that heat down just a tad bit. We're gonna add a little bit more olive oil. And now we're gonna add the mirepoix, which is a combination of equal parts of onion, carrot, and celery. And they're aromatic vegetables which give the braising liquid a delicious taste. So we're gonna add all those right in. And they have to sit in there for about 5 minutes or so to get nice and soft. Adding a bit more seasoning. You season as you go. Now this is going to take about 5 minutes for those onions to get translucent and softened up a bit, the carrots to soften up a bit, and the celery to get cooked before we add the meat back into this. At the bottom of the pan, there is a brown residue from the meat. It is the fond. It is actually the flavor that comes out of that meat that we're going to use so there'll be no mess in the pan sticking to the bottom. To do that, we're going to deglaze the pan. We're going to deglaze it with two things, chicken stock and some wine. I'm going to put a little chicken stock in there now. You're going to add a little wine for flavor. Don't buy cheap cooking wine. Buy wine that you will drink with the meal. This wine actually comes from the area that this meal is derived from. This wine comes from Verona, Italy. And it's a white wine. It's a classic white Sauvé. So it's kind of a medium-bodied white wine. We're going to add it for flavor and also reduce some of that fond off the bottom. Remember, you're going to drink this at the end, so make sure it's a bottle you enjoy. Okay, now this has come up to a boil. We're going to add some tomato paste. Now we're going to add the meat back in. I want to add just a tad bit more tomato paste. Now that it's in the oven for about 2 hours, we're going to take a look at it a little bit. We're going to make sure that it's cooking through, and it should be at a slow simmer. That is, the bubbles coming up slowly, not a rapid boil. It's going to be simmering slowly, one bubble, then another bubble, etc. Andiamo, we're back, and we're about halfway through with the Ossobuco in the oven. I'm going to take it out, we're going to take a look at it, add some thyme and some tomato sauce, and put it in for the last hour. So this is about what it should look like about halfway through. The Ossobuco is starting to pull away from the bone, giving you that open mouth look. We're going to put some thyme in here like that. We're going to add some tomato sauce right from the can, basically. And we're going to pop that back in the oven. Now we're going to move on to our starchy part of the meal. This meal is really a wintertime meal, and it's designed to be stick to your ribs, warm comfort food. And believe it or not, Italy is the largest producer of rice in Europe. The rice they grow in northern part of Italy, because it's marshy and wet, is arboreal rice, which we're going to use for the risotto. It's short-grained, stubby, and filled with starch. As it cooks, the starch releases and becomes the creaminess of the risotto. Now, there's lots of different rice. You've got Louisiana rice. Here in the United States, long-grain white rice, which you're probably very familiar with. I brought some extras here just to show you there's other things out there. This is jasmine rice. It comes from India. It's got a particular fragrance to it, used in a lot of Asian cooking. This is long grain basmati rice, which comes from the Himalaya mountains. And then here I brought some black rice from China called the forbidden rice. It's black, believe it or not, it's black rice. So for our risotto, which really takes some time to cook, is simple enough to do. First, we're going to add some butter to our frying pan. Let that melt out. Going to add some extra virgin olive oil to temper that a bit. And then we're going to add the risotto. Now we're going to add the risotto to the oil to toast it, to give it a nutty flavor. We're not going to make it brown, not going to burn it, but we are going to make it slightly toasted. And that takes a few minutes. You want to coat all the kernels of the rice with the oil that's in the bottom of the pan. And you want this on a medium heat. I'm going to add a little salt and pepper to that. And while that is toasting away, before we add the liquid, which in this case we're going to be using chicken stock, and you could also use water for the rice. It takes about 20 minutes for that liquid to be absorbed by the rice and let the starch out of the rice kernels so it becomes creamy. I want to talk briefly about saffron. Saffron is a spice. It comes from originally Iran. It didn't really come to Europe until Marco Polo, if you remember him from history, went and found this great spice route from Venice all the way to China. And he did that in the 1200s before the Renaissance. Across the Europe and Central Asia, he picked up spices and brought them back to Venice that could be used. One of those spices is saffron. And you can find this in your local supermarket in these little plastic containers on the bottom shelf, usually of the spice department. But it's usually about $9 or $10 for a little 1/8 of an ounce. We bloomed some of that is, we added the saffron to boiling water so it actually steeps like a tea and it turns red and yellow and it'll become a yellow color. The red threads stay together and they become part of the risotto. So this is now cooking away here. And you see it's toasted up a little bit. We're going to add our chicken stock to that. We're going to add the saffron in a few minutes once this gets going. So this is the toasted risotto is in there with the chicken stock. We're adding the saffron liquid and the red threads into the mixture, which gives us distinctive yellow color and flavor. So that's the saffron's added, and that's just going to simmer away for a while now until it cooks. Okay, andiamo, let's get going. The risotto is just about finished. The rice has opened up and the starches have moved out into the braising liquid. We're going to add a little bit of half and half to it, which is an option. It adds to the creaminess. And you can see those nice red threads of saffron in there, and smell that saffron is amazing. I'm going to turn the heat off. And we're going to add a little Parmigiano Reggiano, which comes from the same region in Italy as the rest of the meal. And that's about all there is to risotto. This will thicken up, and will thicken up in a way that we may have to cut it down a bit before we serve it. So it's at this consistency at the end. The rice will continually absorb the liquid and it will get clumped together. So we don't want to serve it clumped together. We want to serve it so it's slightly loosened up. So that is now finished. Now the condiment that is used for the Ossobuco is traditionally a gremolata. Gremolata is chopped Italian parsley, lemon zest, and we use a microplaner for that. And we're just going to put the zest of one lemon in here. Some people think gremolata is the same as chimichurri. Chimichurri is a South American condiment with the same ingredients. However, they use oil and vinegar. This has no oil, no vinegar in it. It is just basically Italian lemons, Italian parsley, and garlic, which we are going to use on the microplaner also, instead of chopping it up. And I've got a couple of cloves of garlic, which I've peeled, and we're going to put those right through the microplaner too. This won't give you large chunks of garlic. There you go. The one difference that I do for my Ossobuco is at the very end, I'm going to take this lemon that we took the zest off, I'm going to cut it in half, and we're going to do a shot of lemon juice on top for the presentation. That's that. Okay, we're coming back to the side dish, which is the asparagus spears parmesan. Asparagus is a spring vegetable, and it has this very woody part at the end here, which we're not going to use. We're going to take that where it breaks off about there. And I do mine a little bit differently. I French the ends. That is, you're taking the skin off, leaving the white part of the asparagus that goes in the water. Also, we do the asparagus a little differently than you might normally. We're going to put it in the microwave, believe it or not, for about 3.5 minutes, and it will come out perfect. We're going to cover it with some plastic wrap. We want to make a seal. And it's going to go right in the microwave, believe it or not. Welcome back, and we are here. We got the asparagus that came out of the microwave, believe it or not, in 3.5 minutes. And the asparagus is the way it should be. It is not limp, it is straight, it's green, it is cooked. And we're going to put those on the plate. Like that. We're going to add a little bit of salt and pepper. Going to add a little bit of extra virgin olive oil. Just a little bit. And then we're going to add a little Parmigiano Reggiano cheese across the middle like that. And that will go back in the oven and melt, and that's that. That is the asparagus Parmigiano. Our shanks are done. The sauce looks like it's pretty much there. I can smell the thyme beautifully. That's exactly what I was looking for. Then a little squeeze of lemon. And the gremolata. Gremolata. Andiamo with the gremolata. And this is Ossobuco alla Milanese with risotto and gremolata. And that is that. Okay. Well, we have a final product, Ossobuco alla Milanese with the gremolata. And the gremolata got the lemon and the garlic in it. Over a bed of saffron risotto, asparagus parmigiana. I paired this with two different kinds of wine. One is a Valpolicella. As I said before, you're going to buy these wines in your supermarket, pretty much. They're about $20 each. Actually, I think it was 17. And they come from the same area that the food comes from. This is Valpolicella. It is a red, subtle, mild wine that is done Ripasso style. That is, the grapes have been taken from the harvest and put on screens and set out in the sun for a few days to concentrate the flavors of the grapes. And this wine, remember, you buy wine that you're going to enjoy. Don't buy cheap wine that says cooking wine, because there's no such thing. Use the wine in the food and enjoy the wine with your meal that you like. And I happen to like Valpolicella. Oh, that is nice. If you're a white wine person, I've got Sauve, comes from Verona in Italy. Again, this is not very expensive wine, but this also pairs well with this meal. It's subtly sweet and crisp, so it goes very nice with the richness of this. So these are the two wines that I would recommend with this meal, and enjoy. Bon appetit. Okay, andiamo. Time to move on to our next dish. And this is going to be the dessert. It's called Panna Cotta. It really means cooked cream. So this is really simple to do. Any home cook can do it. It is really light, and people think it is flan, but it is not, because flan has eggs in it. This has no eggs at all. It's basically whipping cream, half and half, and sugar and vanilla. And that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna take 4 cups of heavy cream in our heavy pan. We're going to add some vanilla. I would use a vanilla bean. Today we're using vanilla extract. We do 1 tablespoon of sugar for every cup of liquid we put in there. So there are 4 tablespoons of sugar for this panna cotta. And this is a little gadget I purchased for doing coffee, but it works very well for this. It just moves the sugar through here so it melts. And this has to cook for about 15 minutes, so it thickens up a bit. While this is simmering, because it's cooked cream, if you're concerned about caloric intake or too much cream, you can actually use half and half as well as the heavy cream. And if you wish to flavor it, you can add some Marsala wine to it, and that will lighten it up a little bit too. Because this is traditionally heavy whipping cream, cooked for a bit, and then add the gelatin to it, and then add to ramekins. But you can lighten it up by using half and half, or adding a little Marsala wine for flavor. Well, we're back and the panna cotta has been simmering in the bowl for about 15 minutes. We're going to add the gelatin, unflavored gelatin to it, and then we're going to mix it together. This is 2 packages of unflavored gelatin in 1 cup of water, cold water. And we're going to mix that through. We're going to take it off the heat. I want to make sure the gelatin is completely incorporated into the heavy whipping cream. Okay, we just want to move that gelatin around so it doesn't stick on the bottom. We're taking it off the heat. I have my ladle here, so we're going to add 1 ladle full to each one of these ramekins. Maybe a little bit more. And these are going to go in the refrigerator for a few hours to set up, and then we'll be able to serve them. You can turn them upside down, or we can serve them inside the ramekin with chocolate shavings or fruit. And this is simple, light dessert, very flavorful. No eggs in this at all. That's basically it. I'm going to pop this in the refrigerator for a few hours to set up. Andiamo. Well, we're almost finished with the meal, and the panna cotta has come from the refrigerator all set up, and we're going to shave some dark chocolate on it. You can use dark chocolate. I happen to like very dark chocolate. And I'm using a vegetable peeler to make those nice little curls. And we're going to add some berries to it. And that's our dessert. Cooked cream panna cotta. Creamy dessert, custard, no eggs, little sugar. Very nice, very light, very creamy. Thank you, friends, for joining me today. Today we prepared foods from northern Italy, from the Lombardy region. We did Ossobuco Milanese, saffron risotto, asparagus parmigiana. For dessert, we made a beautiful panna cotta, which is a cooked cream with berries and chocolate. And we also had beautiful paired wines with that. I hope you enjoyed the program and that we will be back next time. Andiamo.